Hi, everyone. This is Dawn Richard, also known as The Awakening with Dawn, and this is the Wake Up to Real Love podcast, where we share stories of struggles and triumphs in love, sex, and relationships, along with expert advice to create more conscious connections. I am super honored today, and I know it's a really special day. Even we're recording on 2/20/2020, so a lot of twos. I have my friend and colleague, Stephen Witmer, with me. Hi, Stephen.
Hey, Dawn.
Stephen has a master's degree in spiritual psychology from the University of Santa Monica, and he teaches counseling skills as well as coaches people on finding and aligning with their intentions and desires. And I know, Stephen, that we've had several really deep and meaningful conversations. And I remember the first time we talked, you made me cry. I don't know if you remember that. And it wasn't, you made me cry because you're an awful mean person. It was, you made me cry because you spoke such wisdom and truth. And it really, really touched my heart and soul. So I'm super, super honored that you're here with me. Welcome.
Well, it's nice to be here. Thanks, Dawn.
Yeah. So, okay. So my little icebreaker question is, how's that cello going?
Oh my gosh, the cello is going fabulously. Thank you for asking. You know, I enjoy practicing on such a different level now. Sometimes just playing long snow notes and feeling the cello vibrate and resonate itself. And then also, it just sits right on the heart is one of the touch points on my body. And so, yeah, it's a beautiful thing. It's been a lot of fun.
When did you start playing it?
Oh gosh, the first time I guess I was probably in 5th grade and studied privately, and then started studying again about 4 years ago with just a fabulous teacher.
What made you pick it back up again? Because that's a long time to go without playing.
Well, I had played on and off pretty much my whole life, but I had a cello that was not very easy to play or pretty sounding. And without taking lessons and just repeating the same stuff over and over again poorly, it just sort of it just wasn't fun. And music friends of mine got me playing chamber music with them again. And they encouraged me, Bev and Ray, and then they also connected me to my current teacher. So, yeah, the support of others is what helped me pick it back up and achieve things that I never thought I would.
Yeah,
beauty-wise, playing that instrument.
it is such a gorgeous instrument. I've had I had a special experience happen to me many years ago, sort of in a convention center, and my ex had lost his job, and we had a new baby, and I was really like scared, and the way that this man played, his name is Marston Smith. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he played for Michael Jackson. He played for like all these really well-known musicians. And the way that he played the cello, it was like he was one with the instrument. And the music was so angelic and transformative. It's really, really special instrument. So I can see why you're drawn to it, and I can see why you resonate with it and why it resonates with you.
Yeah. Yep, it does.
Yeah, so beautiful. So I'm gonna start by asking you, what in the world made you go back to school and get your master's in spiritual psychology?
Okay, yeah. Excuse me. So I was that person everyone would call when they were having problems.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. And a lot of us out there can. I think we're part of the feeling, community so I was that person everyone was calling, and I was like, I was kind of questioning maybe a change of career, different things were going through my mind. And I thought, well, I was looking at schools to become a licensed counselor, and nothing resonated with me. But I knew I wanted to learn more because I certainly didn't want to hurt anyone when the intention was to just be a vessel for helping, if that was possible. And none of the schools that had licensing degrees were really speaking to me. And then I ended up on a flight. I got pulled off one flight, put on another, and was talking with another colleague, and we were using the same vocabulary and just speaking sort of the same way. And I told her what I was interested in, and she said, "Oh, you should consider a school I just graduated from." And she had a brochure. And when I saw the brochure, the University of Santa Monica, I was like, "Oh, that's going to be my program." And at that point, it no longer became important for me to be a licensed counselor. Something resonated me with that school, and I applied immediately and started in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
And soon into the program, probably 2 months into the program, I realized, oh, this isn't really so much about helping other people. This is really for me. And I thought, okay, so this program is for me. And if I help anyone else in the process, that much better.
That's the bonus.
That's the bonus. So that's sort of like thinking of grad schools in one direction, and by chance or divine intervention,
Right.
as it more seems,
There are no coincidences.
exactly, ended up at the perfect place for me.
So what did you learn about yourself during this process?
I mean, certainly I learned a lot about myself. I think my big takeaway was learning how to be loving to myself and compassionate to myself. One of the many sayings at the school is, how we are with ourselves while we go through the issue becomes the issue.
Oh, can you repeat that, please? I think
Yes.
that's important.
So how I am with myself as I go through the issue becomes the issue. So problems start what we see or think on the outside,
Mm-hmm.
and they trigger a feeling or an upset or whatever on the inside. And when I learned how to be loving and compassionate with myself, all of a sudden, whatever was going on outside was secondary, and I learned how to take care of me and love me. And in that, certainly resolutions came for the outside world as well.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Well, it makes sense. And I think we need to talk a lot about this, because I don't think that a lot of people know how to do this, Stephen, which is why what you're doing is so important. And this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, because, there's so much, talking about love and being loving and self-love. It just sounds so out there. Like, what does that really mean? Why is that important? Who cares? I can love my spouse. I can love my kids. I can love my job. A lot of times we throw around that word so easily, but when it comes to how am I treating myself, this is a big one.
It is. It's the essence, I think. I do believe everything starts inside, at home, inside us, inside me as an individual. However, I am able or choose to work with the situation, then radiates outwards. So I never really think about my effect on the universe or my community. However that is affected is sort of like a byproduct of how I'm resonating with myself and how I'm working with myself.
So why is it important to do that?
Well, for me, the importance is because I do not have power to change others or situations. That is what I see is out of my control. What I see is in my control is how I am with myself, and knowing my own roadmap, and then taking down whatever walls are in the way from me sort of aligning with that desire or intention. So that's why I think it's important. I think Stephen Covey said, the roadmap, without a roadmap, if we decide we're going to go to Florida and we don't have a roadmap, we may get there eventually, but the roadmap is sort of it's a plan. It's a plan. It's not that I won't take side trips. on my journey, but I know if I follow certain roads or certain paths, I should reach my destination in a certain amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
So back to, that's why I think knowing myself and how to be loving with myself is ultimately the most important, because from that place, then I am either in alignment or out of alignment with my desires, goals, others in my life.
So how did that change your way of being in the world? How did it change your relationships? How did it change the way that you are with yourself?
Okay, well, I'll start with the first, and you may have to remind me of those. But the first question you said is, how did it change my being with the world or
Uh-huh.
relating?
Uh-huh. How did it change the way that you show up in the world?
I think it softened many of my preconceived notions of what was quote unquote right, wrong, what should happen or shouldn't happen.
Can you give me an example?
Hmm. Um, it's for me, it's difficult to work in generalities, but I guess one way would say, say something happens on the outside in a relationship, and I can say in the past, I would say, that person shouldn't have treated me that way, or they
Uh-huh.
shouldn't have acted that way.
Uh-huh.
And when I soften that and just sort of accept that everything is happening in divine timing and just the way it should, then I can just look at myself. I no longer see or the other person is doing something wrong or being wrong. I just go, is this in alignment with how I want to be in the world and
Mm.
who I want to be with, or is it not in alignment? So then, without making me wrong or the other person wrong or right, me right or the other person right, it's just like it's a question. Is this in alignment with what I want to experience or how I want to experience my life, or
Mm-hmm.
is it not? And if it's not, then that's my roadmap. Then I can quietly, with blessings, go on my merry way and let that person go on their merry way to find somebody that's more in alignment.
Uh-huh. And when you say, does it feel like it's in alignment? Do you feel it in your body? Is there some sort of message center that lets you know that this is in alignment or this is out of alignment?
Absolutely. For me, and I suspect it's probably a little different for each individual, and some people may not even be aware of the connection between their mind, emotions, and body.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I feel it in my heart and my overall body, as far as being relaxed,
Mm-hmm.
or feeling centered or grounded. I know we use that word a lot. It's a little like, well, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
But when I know I'm in alignment, then my body is relaxed. I am relaxed. My heart is opened, and my heart is in a loving, authentically loving place.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel a sense of peace as well, like a sense of lightness and sort of just peace?
Definitely. Oh, definitely peace. Definitely peace. Because at that point, when I know what is right for me, then yes, for me that relaxation, I guess, would also translate as peace.
Because
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that people most struggle about, is that they're constantly looking for external validation. Is this okay for me? Like,
I,
I how do you come back to um really knowing yourself? Like, is this okay for me? Does this honor me? Is this the energy that I want in my life? Is this the experience that I want to have?
right. I, and I hear you. And a lot of people are looking outside. For me, one of the most important questions is, what do I want?
Mm.
Not what do I feel I should have? What do I think
Uh-huh.
I need? But what do I want?
Were you asked
Um,
that question as a child?
no, I was not asked that question ever as a child that I remember. I
Huh.
was just told what I was going to be doing, eating, everything.
Uh-huh.
So definitely learning that as an adult to just check in daily, hourly, depending on the situation and the stress. So what do I want in this situation? How would I like to see this going?
Uh-huh.
And it's not that what I want is necessarily, again, right or wrong. It's not a matter of that. We can't really prove what's good, what's bad, what's right or wrong. We know how we experience a situation.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the thing, since we're telling ourselves or making up stories as we go along,
Right.
what I've learned through grad school is to, well, why don't I just make sure I write the story where I'm the winner now instead of the loser? And again, is it based on any more things that are real? No.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as a roadmap or having a roadmap, if I write the story where I'm the winner, I'm certainly much closer, I feel, to achieving that happiness or contentment than writing myself the loser.
Mm-hmm.
Again, neither one is based in reality. So making a choice, I'm going to choose where I'm the winner. And that becomes my roadmap in a sense.
Well, and I think a lot of people live their life feeling less than, feeling like the loser because of the critical voices that you carry around in your head, whether it was from parents, siblings, friends, teachers, colleagues. You have this critical voice. And so it's how do you, because in your responses when I sent you the pre-interview form, you said listening to the loving inner voice. And I feel like a lot of people have forgotten how to listen to that. It's there. Like some people may say, I don't even have one of those inside of me, do I?
Right. That's a good point. Like many things, depending on our upbringing, things get shut down.
Uh-huh.
And unfortunately for a lot of people, the loving inner counselor or inner voice is one of the things that gets shut down first. And it's basically a survival skill. To survive in a family where that is not welcomed, it's not safe to listen to your inner voice or loving inner voice. So a child may create or adopt the parent's voice as a survival technique. But then again, once we reach a certain age, we can ask ourselves, well, if I don't know where my loving inner voice is, am I open to exploring that I may even possibly have one? And that in itself is huge, just because for some people to believe they have a loving inner voice is not even an option. And so the first step is, are you open to the possibility that loving inner voice is still inside you somewhere?
Where do you think
Just
it
the
is?
smallest. What's that?
Where do you think it is?
Again, that would be an individual experience, and I can share where mine is, but I wouldn't want to limit somebody else or think that their loving inner voice has to come from the same place. The fun, I think sometimes, so let's make this fun, is the freedom to explore where your loving inner voice is coming from. Maybe it starts in your feet when you first, because that's the safest place you can feel it. Or maybe it starts, that loving inner voice, just in the back of your head. It's an opening. And like anything else, as we learn something and become more aware, then perhaps that inner voice travels to other parts of the body. So I'll leave that up to the individual. If they're open to the possibility that that loving inner voice may reside inside them, then let them have the fun of exploring where it might be right now, and then be open to the possibility that it may just take over the whole body at some point.
That would be awesome.
Wouldn't it?
I think that's the ideal, and I'll tell you why. Because last week when I went on my disco cruise, I told you about that.
That sounds like fun.
It was very fun, and the thing that was beautiful about it was that I believe that space of unity and union and community in sharing music and dance and fun and joy and laughter and pleasure. That was a lot of people's inner voices shouting out loud, I am right here.
Right.
It
Yeah.
was a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah. And that collective energy to me has always been so uplifting. So uplifting and such a loving reminder of how much love and good there is in the world.
Yeah, I mean, that was the message across the whole week. Almost every single musician, because there were like 20 something bands that played, the Jacksons,
Wow.
KC and the Sunshine Band, Commodores,
Oh my
Jody
gosh.
Watley, Sister Sledge, the Miracles. I mean, the list went on and on and on. It was just fantastic music. And almost every person said, you know, choose love. This is about choosing love, expressing your joy, being in the moment, and just enjoying yourself, like following what lights you up. And I think all of this stuff is tied to this same aspect of that loving inner voice. What do I do that makes me feel really good about myself, that brings me a lot of joy, that makes me feel light and expansive and just the best version of myself that I can be?
Yeah. Yeah. But the first thing you said is about choosing love.
Mm-hmm.
And, that just triggered something in me, which is a lot of us, especially in difficult situations, it's like, where do I find the strength to make that choice? Or is that even an option?
Yeah.
And that's the tricky part. It's easy to choose love when we're in a happy, light, loving
Yeah.
place.
Yes.
The struggle, at least for me, has been in developing that muscle to choose love when I'm in a place where I really maybe didn't want to,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and and that is a very powerful place to explore. Is how do I choose love when I'm not in a loving place at all?
Yeah. When I'm being
How do I
challenged.
open up? Yeah, yeah, or feel beat down,
Yeah.
or feel unlovable.
Yes.
How do I shift? How do I shift my energy so that I can start in that direction? And it has to be somewhat believable or it won't work.
Yeah.
So
I
how do
mean,
I
you
get
can't
to an authentic place?
fake it till you make it.
Not, I'm sure to some degree, but if that were always the case, then when we hit painful situations, we'd say, well, I'm going to choose love,
Uh-huh.
and we would feel better, but we don't, do we?
No.
And we call that spiritual bypass.
Yeah.
It's like there's some deeper work that's present, and there's no really shortcut around it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no shortcut. And so again, the challenge, or what I present to people, is, so what are you going to do, or what am I going to do when I'm in that really dark place? And that's the last thing I want to choose. Or
Mm-hmm.
not even the last thing I want to choose so much as I don't even know where to begin to look.
Yeah, because I feel so overwhelmed and depressed.
Yeah,
I can barely get out of bed. Everything
right.
looks like dark to me.
Yeah, it's like, what's the point?
Uh-huh.
And so again, a very challenging but an introspective, just we all know what it's like to be there. And what I'd like to put out to myself anyway is, when I get to that place, how can I access that loving part of me? And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying loving the situation or
No.
loving that dark place, but I'm saying, again, how I am with myself while I go through the issue becomes the issue. So how can I create, or at least an opening for, some self-love and compassion?
I think compassion is a huge part of it, and I think kindness is a huge
Yeah,
part of it.
yeah, yeah. And compassion, one of the things I learned about compassion that was, for me, fascinating, I think if you break the word apart in Greek or Latin, and you all can look this up, but it's being with the suffering. One of the definitions is being with the suffering. And that means not changing it. If I'm going to be compassionate with myself or with somebody else, can I just be with my suffering or somebody else's suffering and be okay with it? I think that, to me, is a very healing form of compassion.
Yeah.
Is knowing that I can be with my own suffering without feeling the need to change it, to go, well, this must be part of my process. So instead of rushing through this pain, let me just lovingly be with myself, be with my upset, give myself permission to feel all the feelings. Because in feeling all those feelings, typically, I get what parts of me could use a little more love applied.
Yeah.
I think our teachers, one of the things was loving or healing is the application to love to the places that hurt. May not have that perfect, but hopefully you
Yeah.
get the gist behind that.
Yeah. I often say that those, people talk about shadows and dark, aspects of yourself. And I basically say that these are the parts of yourself that you're not loving and accepting. These are
Yes.
the parts of yourself that you feel judged, you feel ashamed, you feel criticized or devalued. And, we all have aspects of ourself that are dark, for lack of a better word.
Right.
They're not the shiny pretty things that we like to show on the outside. They're the things, and I'm gonna get emotional, I'm feeling emotional right now. It's the parts of us that we have a hard time loving.
Absolutely.
They're the parts of us that we struggle with. They're the parts of us that feel disconnected or alone or lonely or sad or abandoned. All of these places in our life where we're not really being here for ourselves.
Yeah. And listening to you explain that, it's like those dark places are just showing us where we're not honoring our life.
Yeah.
Because everything in my past has helped me get to the place where I am today.
Yeah.
If I did away with any of those painful experiences, I wouldn't be the person I am today. And a long time ago, and with the help of school, I realized that a painful situation isn't really bad. It's just painful. And again, when I stopped labeling painful situations as bad, it just made it easier to be compassionate with myself and go, okay, you're in a tough spot right now, Stephen, or you're in a lonely spot, or you're in a whatever that spot is, and it's neither good or bad. It's just part of the process, and gave me the opportunity to, again, be compassionate with myself and therefore loving. And so that when I came out of those places, to me, I felt that's where that healing had occurred.
Yeah.
Not that I wouldn't go down that same path again. Certain deep wounds, I have to revisit multiple, as you know, times infinity.
All along the journey.
Yeah. And the same dark place can be with us for years. But what I learned is, again, as I apply compassionate loving, they soften. The darkness may return, but it'll return with a little more light, and a little more light, and a little more light. And depending on how dark it was, it's that many more times I revisit. But every time I revisit with compassion and love, I shine more light on it. And it gets easier and easier, and it stays with me. Those lows don't stay down there near as long. The dips are like instead of whoosh, off the page.
Well, I know, when I was in the depths of my marital struggles, I cried so many times saying, why is this happening to me? This is so painful.
Yeah.
And yet, I mean, I still get emotional about it because I do, because it still makes me sad. But I wouldn't be here having this conversation with you had I not gone through what I went through, right. and the amount, this is why I want to have these conversations for this podcast, because I feel like there are not very many places where people feel open enough and brave enough to share all of this stuff. And this is my mission and purpose, is to help normalize all of these struggles so that we do have more love and kindness and compassion for ourselves, so that we can accept ourselves, so that we can suffer and know that eventually I'll be okay. It's like getting through the stuff. You can't see the other side. You can't see the light at the end of the tunnel when you're just in the darkness of the tunnel. Right. But it's my hope to instill hope, so that all people can recognize or just remind themselves, that inner loving voice is there. There is love and acceptance for you, and it starts with you. And when you have kindness and compassion for yourself, then when you see other people struggling, you can offer them some support and encouragement and say, you know what, I know this really sucks right now, but somehow, some way, someday, you'll get through it, because your love is greater than all of the other stuff, than all of the struggle.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. And, that's one thing, when I'm with somebody that is going through a difficult time, I no longer even acknowledge that I know this is rough. I just go to the place of, I hope you can be gentle with yourself, and I hope you can find love for yourself in this process,
Yeah.
And sometimes that's all it takes, is for an outside voice to remind somebody that, oh, I can choose to be more loving with myself in the midst of this upset.
Yeah.
I think that's, as a collective or as a whole and being together, it's what we can do for each other. And it doesn't take a lot of energy, and we're not going to fix anything. There's really nothing that needs fixed anyway, but we're not going to, our intention is not to fix it so much as to lend some love and compassion, and perhaps a little reminder to somebody that's forgotten that they are lovable just as they are, with whatever's going on in their life, whatever crazy's happening. And sort of that, to me, takes some of the weight off. I know when people show loving and kindness to me when I'm in a down place, it just helps me breathe better. Again, finding a little bit of peace and compassion for myself, so I can go, oh, okay, yeah, this is painful, and where do I want to go with it?
Yeah, I think it's reminding people that you can hold both within the same thing. It's like, I can be upset and I can still feel loving towards myself.
Yes.
I can screw up, I can make a mistake or make a bad choice or whatever, but that doesn't mean that I'm a bad person.
Exactly.
It's those.
And I'm going to reframe that. I can make a choice that's maybe, I'm going to make it, so say I make a choice that's not in alignment with really how I want to show up in this world.
Yeah.
So I make one of those choices, yes, to remind myself, ooh, not sure where that came from, or maybe I do know where it came from, but I'm still a loving, worthwhile person who deserves love and compassion. I'm a soul having a human experience, and part of the human experience is doing what we do, sometimes for no apparent reason, and sometimes for plenty of hidden reasons.
Yeah, I think mostly hidden reasons.
Yeah. There's always a reason we do what or make the choices we make, especially when they're not in alignment with how we want to show up.
Uh-huh. And I mean, when you were talking about that, I was just thinking, you know, what if a person grew up feeling unlovable?
Mm-hmm.
What if they grew up feeling unlovable, that they don't even recognize that they are lovable and valuable and worthy and sacred and, you know, just a beautiful, perfect soul? I think that we're all born these beautiful, perfect, loving souls. And then we have these human experiences that block us from that truth.
Right. And then it's a matter of remembering from where we came, or getting back to that place, that loving connectedness.
And so how do you remind people of that, or how do you help people learn that about themselves or remember that truth?
Okay. Stay with me on this.
Yep.
And ask questions if I lose you. So our mind is always telling stories. It's very creative and it creates nonstop. What I talked about earlier is like, if I'm going to write a story for myself, I'm going to write the winning story. But for some people that's not even possible. It's time to challenge it. So if I've got a pencil in one hand and a cup in the other, and I want to pick up a third thing, what do I need to do?
Put something down.
I've got to put something down, and beliefs are that way. So if I want to pick up a new belief, then it's going to be important to release a belief that's no longer serving me. And this is sort of how beliefs work in our brain, is again through upbringing, through some sort of learning, and then at some point when we're an adult, we have chosen to accept that belief still, but we tell ourselves a story. And then we go out and we look for things to prove that our story's true.
Right.
So we make a judgment, and then we build a case around to prove that that judgment's accurate. But this is the thing about judgments. To make an accurate judgment means we need to understand 100% of the situation. 100%.
Is that ever possible?
Exactly. It's not. You know, we have physical world reality, and then we have our spiritual world reality, where we don't really know why we're here. Maybe some people do. I'm still working on that. But that's the thing. So if everything is serving my highest good, which is a belief that I accept, then it behooves me to challenge the beliefs that were put in place by me or my forefathers or a religion or whatever. And once I can pretty much assume that I can't prove it, then there's an opening. There's an opening to pick something else up. And at school, we call them forgiveness statements. And this is not Christian forgiveness. To me, Christian, or what I sort of put with Christian forgiveness, is you did me wrong, I'm going to forgive you, and we're going to move on. This is forgiveness for self. And there are two sort of basic statements. One is, I forgive myself for buying into the belief.
Oh, wow. That's powerful.
Forgive myself for buying into the belief. So I'll plug that belief in. Once I can point out or recognize what my judgments have been or what my story is, I can plug it into a forgiveness statement. I put my hand on my heart and say, I forgive myself for buying into the belief that even though I made this sort of dark energy choice, I forgive myself for buying into the belief that I'm a bad person or unworthy of love. If I can feel something release, then I restate it in a new way. Because the truth is, my dark actions are not contingent on me being lovable or not. Or they're not, that might not be the right word, but my dark actions aren't predicating my lovability. So I take the old statement and I put it in a forgiveness statement, release that, and then choose anew. Again, this is rewriting the story. It doesn't change what I did, but it helps soften how I feel about myself. And again, if I can apply love and compassion to that, it starts slowing the process down. So the next time that choice may come up again, I'm a little calmer about it.
Mm-hmm.
So that sometimes I make the same quote unquote dark choice several more times before I can even examine what's driving me to make the choice that feels out of alignment as opposed to the choice that might feel in alignment.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's challenging beliefs, the belief system. And by challenging the belief system and then being willing to let it go and adopt something totally new.
Mm.
And belief systems, there's a funny story. This one family, this newlywed, she's making a roast for her husband, and she cuts the ends off and she puts it in the pot and cooks it. And this is how it goes on for years. And finally he's like, honey, why do you cut the ends off the pot roast before you cook it? She's like, I don't know. It's the way my mother did it. So the next time she's talking to her mother, she says, hey, Mom, why do we cut off the ends of the pot roast before we cook it? And she says, well, that's because that's the way my mother did it. So then eventually the girl's talking to her grandmother, and she's like, Grandma, why do we cut the ends off the pot roast before we cook it? And the grandmother says, because it won't fit in the pot. So you can see several generations had adopted this belief as this is just the way it is without even questioning why.
Yeah.
And so to stop and question why we're choosing what we're choosing, especially in relationships, right? Why do I keep choosing the same person that I ultimately know it's not in alignment with what I want to experience in relationship?
Mm-hmm.
Yet I keep choosing it. So again, pretending various things isn't going to change it. Understanding why is the key.
Yeah.
So that then we can realign or align more fully with our intention to be in a loving relationship with another person, ourself, our family.
Mm-hmm.
But questioning beliefs, questioning why, putting it to the test. And sometimes you'll come up against something, you'll say, well, that is true. So-and-so is an asshole. Okay. Well, if you can't find any way around it, perhaps that's not the judgment that you have in place.
Uh-huh.
Perhaps the judgment is that they, oh, I think they should behave differently.
Uh-huh.
So I forgive myself for buying into the belief that Johnny should act differently.
Uh-huh.
Because the truth is, Johnny's acting the way Johnny's supposed to act. It's just not in alignment with what I want.
Yeah. It's just not the energy that I want to be around.
Right.
And I think the part of asking questions and always being curious, it starts and ends with yourself, right? Why am I choosing this? Why do I believe this?
Yep.
What is it about me that's going on that I'm having this sort of experience? It all comes back to this self-examination.
Absolutely. Because the person out here is not doing anything wrong. They're just being that person. If we're choosing somebody that's not in alignment with what we want, then it's up to us to not change them and not change us, but to explore why it is we're choosing somebody that we know ultimately isn't in alignment.
And can you have conversations with the person that you're in relationship to say, hey, I'm noticing this?
You can, but to me, firstly, I would have a loving conversation with myself.
Uh-huh.
What is it I want to change about this person and why?
Uh-huh.
What is it? Yeah. What is it that I feel I need to change to stay in this relationship, and why?
Or maybe what have I been sacrificing in order to stay in this relationship?
Absolutely. Where am I out of alignment to make this relationship work? And to just explore it on the self level. I mean, certainly, again, we're speaking in huge generalities here. So it's really difficult to pinpoint anything, but there may be appropriate times to talk to your partner about what you're noticing and everything else. But I would start initially with myself. Because if I don't know what's not in alignment with me, asking somebody to change, I mean, that might be a little Band-Aid.
Right.
But pretty much I still know how it's going to end.
Uh-huh.
Because Band-Aids come off in the shower, you know, and then the sore is exposed again and we're starting all over. So
Uh-huh.
again, it's starting with myself. I found, you know, in my last relationship, when I stopped making him wrong and me wrong and just realized we weren't in alignment, it's not that I didn't cry when I left, but all of a sudden I could breathe again.
Mm.
I knew it was the right thing because I knew we weren't in alignment.
Mm-hmm.
It was just that simple. Nobody had to be wrong.
Yeah,
Nobody had to be wrong.
and
It
it
was
doesn't
just,
make it any less painful.
it doesn't make it less painful. We're not saying that things don't hurt, but if I have a roadmap, if I have an idea of how I want to experience a loving relationship and I'm not in that, then it's up to me to figure out what's going on with me and make choices from there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the other person, not to sound callous, but they're placeholders. It can be any face. It can be any name. The same shit's going to come up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We can change partners many times, but if the same situations keep coming up, if I don't start looking at myself and my choices, you know, again, the placeholders are going to change, but the situation, the relationship is still going to be the same.
Yeah, I say that happens a lot of times when people break up or get divorced or whatever. It's like if they're not willing to face themselves before they
Right.
before they go to the next person, you know, you keep meeting
Mm-hmm.
yourself in a different person in the, you know,
Yeah.
in similar situations.
Right. And that's a fine way to do it as well. I don't think that there's you need to take time or not, but just let it unfold. But at some point, no matter what direction you choose, the question is going to be, okay, it's sort of like, what am I doing to create this? How am I creating my current situation?
Uh-huh.
How am I creating this? Because ultimately we are our creators,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, and again, not to say it from an angry or hateful place or belittling ourselves, but from a loving place, compassionate place, going, wow, Stephen, it looks like we've made a very similar choice yet again. So what's here for me? What's my payoff?
Uh-huh.
What's my payoff? Just to do the self-examining. That's where maybe perhaps going to counseling, having a neutral party that can help you see your actions and your choices where they're not in alignment with your expressed goals or desires,
Mm-hmm.
can be helpful. But it doesn't mean that you can't do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Do it your own self-counseling. Sit down with a piece of paper and have counselor and your name, and ask the questions and then listen for the answers and just see where it might take you, but do it from a loving, compassionate place.
I feel like a lot of people, and I know this was true for me for a while. I have gone through periods in my life where I journaled and wrote, you know, and reflected.
Mhm.
And there was a period in my marriage where when it was really painful, where I didn't want to write because I didn't want to face myself.
Yeah.
And I was basically running away from myself. And I think a lot of people do that because to really face yourself, that puts yourself in a very vulnerable position, you know, where you can have those judgments and beliefs about, you know, oh, I'm not worth it, or, you know, this
hmm
is all on me, or, you know, I mean, all of these things. It's like, how do you quiet yourself and slow yourself down enough to just be present with who you are and what's going on for you and what's coming up for you? And, you know, and like I said, like you said, you know, questioning everything.
Yeah. And when you're in that dark place, again, where you don't want to write because of what may come up, to me, that just shows an opportunity for expressing compassion and self-love.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I find myself avoiding the exploration, then I'm probably being a critic to myself instead of a compassionate, loving partner.
Mm-hmm.
And so setting an intention beforehand, I'm showing up as a loving, compassionate partner for myself right now, to listen from my heart. And that means with complete acceptance. It's not saying you're going to, in a physical world reality that you're going to agree with all of your actions. It's saying from this place, again, the namaste, the divine in me sees the divine in you.
Mm-hmm.
And to operate from that place instead of the harsh judging place. Because we know pretty much that's not going to get us anywhere.
Yeah.
Right? If I've been beating myself up for making poor choices in the past, and I think, well, I just need to be harder on myself. I just need to be harder on myself. I just need to be, at some point at 50, you're like, well, maybe that's not working. So if that's not working, it's going to be important to find another way to be with myself,
Mm-hmm.
Well,
don't you feel like so many people struggle their whole lives with being that loving, compassionate person for themselves. It's like, you look to the outside world for your validation and your affirmation, and it has to come from within, because if it's external, it's fleeting. It can change at the snap of a fingers or drop of a hat or whatever you say. But that's why this work is so important to do deep within yourself, because you're going to be the first and last person you live with, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And everybody else and everything else can fall away. Relationships can come and go, but you are still going to be standing with yourself.
Yeah, right. What's the common denominator?
Mm-hmm.
What's the common denominator in my life? And it's me and how I am with myself.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it doesn't, that outside person, again, can still be that reminder, that loving reminder.
Yeah.
But the work still has to be done from the person.
Uh-huh. Because I
it's
know
not
that
happen from the outside.
No, because I know that you've said, finding your own internal sense of happiness, because a lot of people look to, well, I'll be happy when I have the perfect relationship, or when I have the perfect job, or the perfect home, or the perfect children.
So that was something I think I had shared with you in the past. I remember it was probably 2 years after my breakup, and I'm at the gym on the elliptical machine, just working out, feeling pretty good about life, feeling pretty good about myself, but there was something niggling in the back of my mind. And it's like, so I gave it a voice. I said, so what's going on? And it's like, well, I won't really be my happiest until I'm in a loving relationship. And I almost fell off the elliptical because that hit me in the face like,
huh?
What are you saying? And in that moment, I said, you know what? I'm not willing to give another day up or lose a day of happiness because I'm not in a relationship. And from that day forward, my sort of mantra, if you will, is today I will be my happiest. Today I'll be my happiest. And so when there are walls in front of me, I say, so what do I need to do to take these walls down? Because this could be my last day. And one day it'll be true. And I don't want to I don't want to waste a day feeling angry, upset, hurt, lonely. There are billions of people in the world. If I'm lonely, who's the one that's cutting, I'm cutting me out.
Right.
So that was just one of those aha moments that were just tremendously helpful in me seeing and changing, because I was no longer willing to accept the belief that I wouldn't be my happiest until I had a loving relationship. Just wasn't going, because it may not happen in this life for me. And I really want to be okay with that. And at this point, I'm okay with that. A very authentic place. Does it mean that sometimes I don't long for a loving partner doesn't mean that. But in the greater scheme, I'm in gratitude of the fabulous life I've created for myself and the loving friends that I have around me.
Yeah.
So, just acknowledging or listening to the belief that was there, because some people wouldn't have even wanted to hear that. There would have been a time in my life where I couldn't have talked to myself and heard the answers because I didn't want to hear them. Either because I thought that, well, if I hear the answer, then I've got to make a change.
I don't
And I
want to
know with work,
change.
well, it's scary.
Yeah, it
And
is
I know
scary.
with working with clients, when I hear, I don't know, that's one of the first things we have to overcome, because I'm like, somewhere inside you must know. You're the only one that can know why. And what I learned through working with myself was, when that I don't know comes up with me, it's a defense mechanism for I really don't want to acknowledge what I
Right.
do know,
Right.
out of fear that I'm going to have to change something that I feel I might not be ready to change or know how to change. When I gave myself permission to hear the information without judgment, without needing to change anything, it's just information, people. That's all it is. And if the day comes where I might want to change, get off that little hamster wheel, at least I have the information to know what may help me do it. So that I don't know just doesn't exist in my world anymore. It's like, oh, why am I doing X, Y, Z? Or why am I acting out of alignment? Or could I act in more alignment? And I let the information come through me, because I can be with myself in a loving, compassionate way. And with that information, sometimes I'm like, oh, hell no, I'm not ready for that. And that's okay.
Right.
Because at least the information's there.
Yeah.
So that if this is a lifetime for me to work with that particular situation, I have an idea of what different choices can be made that may create a different outcome.
Right. I think that people, I often say to people, like, continue asking the questions until you're ready to hear the answer.
Yes, absolutely. Continue asking the question. So you may just want to add with that, ask the question without judgment, or ask the question with love.
Yeah.
Because adding that little bit might give somebody permission to hear the answer sooner, as opposed to continue asking the question. But if that inner dialogue is, you dumb, beep, 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 they're not going to let it come out, because we don't want to feel like a failure in our own life.
Right.
So that I don't know is sort of like a scapegoat, instead of saying, I do know, and I'm going to continue to make the same dumb choice, or not dumb choice, the same choice, it's not in alignment.
Right.
Because at that point, once we see what we're doing, again, there's the stigma that, well, then you should do it differently. Well, I don't know that that's true.
Right.
I'm not even going to go there. First, let's just be loving, compassionate, and let the information come through me. And then I'll be loving and compassionate while I make some changes or not.
Right. Yeah, I heard this question a long time ago. It sticks with me. It's, what would love do in this situation?
Yeah.
What would love do? Because, whatever situation you're dealing with, a loving, what a loving choice looks like, and what a fearful, disconnected choice looks like. Loving connection, feel good, peaceful joy, versus disconnection, fear, anxiety, heaviness. They look different, they feel different, they affect differently.
They resonate so totally different. But I would challenge the fact that there are some people that probably don't know both sides of that. There are probably people that just know the scary side of that, the anxiety-ridden side of that, the upset side of that. And to those people, again, I just encourage them to find a loving inner voice. Even if you have to go back in your life to where you got to experience some compassion. It could have been just petting the neighborhood dog. And how did you feel? Were you able to feel love and compassion there? Now can you hold the mirror up and express that to yourself?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's been so long since people have felt that we have to, or we have the opportunity to sort of take them back. So at some point, hopefully somebody did feel those feelings. And can we help wake them back up and then bring them forward into your current life and situation?
Right. I think sometimes I have used with clients, like, see yourself as a 5-year-old child. And if your 5-year-old child was struggling with whatever, you're struggling with right now, how would you treat them? And, I'd pick them up in my arms. I'd sit them on my lap. I'd give them a big hug. Like, this is what you need to do for yourself right now.
Or you at least have the opportunity.
You have
the opportunity to do that for yourself, because we know, again, the definition of insanity.
Right.
If I keep beating myself up, that's exactly what I'm going to get.
Yeah.
And so this leads to another, I think, important thing is making a change, even a simple change. Changes are just so scary because it's the unknown.
Right.
And going into the unknown for many people, or all of us at some level, is just frightening. And but it's necessary if we're going to expand the circle in which we're traveling. And I tell people, friends, it's like, listen, if you think you're making another choice, a different choice, but you know how it's going to end, you're making the same choice, just a different way. So how do I become comfortable with making choices, different choices, where I don't know what the outcome is going to be? And that is a very powerful place to get. And again, it still comes back to holding yourself with a loving kindness and compassion, or with a loving intent, so that I'm giving myself permission to make a different choice. I may have to make 50 different choices before one is like, oh, finally, this is starting to feel more in alignment. But can I give myself permission to do that?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people will, quote unquote, say, well, I chose something different once, it didn't work, and so boom. And I'm like, well, but again, if you keep choosing what you know and how it's going to end, you will keep getting. The universe is very loving that way. They're like, if that's what you want, that's what I'll give you. But when you're ready to explore, if you choose something else, I'll give you maybe the same thing initially, depending on the choice, or maybe something way off base. But if we keep choosing, giving ourselves permission to make different choices, not knowing how it's going to end, we're at a much better place of finding alignment or joy or happiness. I know I'm not going to find it if I keep choosing the same thing, because I'm afraid of the unknown.
Well, I think too, like when you were talking about that, it was like, how many times did Thomas Edison have to tweak the light bulb?
Exactly.
How many times wasn't it like hundreds, thousands? And then finally, but you have to come, you have to approach it very open-mindedly, like almost like a sort of a playful experience.
Yes.
I wonder what would happen if I did this.
Right.
This will be kind of interesting to see what happens. If you look at it instead of like, oh my God, what's going to happen? It's all based on your perspective and your intention. So it's just like, hey, I'm going to throw the dice and see how this one comes out.
Yeah, exactly. And for a forgiveness statement, I forgive myself for buying into the belief that I need to know how it's going to end to be safe. Because the truth is, I may be even safer by choosing the unknown.
Yeah.
I don't even like the word safe. Happy.
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 There was a thing, a little picture that I saw that was a little girl who was holding on super tight to this little teddy bear that she had. And she's like, don't make me give it away. Don't make me give it away. And it was Jesus on the other side having a huge, huge teddy bear waiting for her, you know, to give up what she had in order to give her something better. So this is the thing, you know, like in my own marriage, choosing divorce was the most difficult choice I've ever made because I had no idea what was on the other side. But now that I made that choice, I think, oh my gosh, this is so much better than I could have imagined. Right. And I'm so thankful that I made this really, really scary, difficult choice.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
You know, there are, I think that I call them the three addictions. It's safety, comfort, and control.
Illusions. I would call them the three illusions.
Well, they are illusions, but so many people spend a lifetime chasing or creating a life that they think is safe, comfortable, and where they feel in control. But the reality is they are illusions. They don't exist. And when we spend a lifetime trying to follow those, we stop living.
Yeah.
Because part of life is not knowing, is trying new things, is doing things differently, you know, being shocked and awed by a choice we may have made that took us somewhere great or took us somewhere even more frightening than where we were.
Right.
But knowing.
But you learned something.
I have the opportunity to learn something with each choice.
Yeah.
And if I look at life as it's just a platform for learning,
yeah,
then it makes for me, it makes it a lot more fun to make choices that I am just like, I don't know where it's going, but it feels like this is the choice to make because I know what lies on the other end of that.
Yeah. I feel like if you approach your life as just one big adventure, like, wonder where this adventure is going to take me. You know, like kids are always seeking new adventures and exploring and stuff. Like this is what I feel like our life should be. You know, that you're constantly exploring and expanding and making choices that align with who you think you want to be. And then you get to the place, you arrive sort of, and then you say, well, does this resonate? Is this where I want to be? If the answer is yes, okay, I'll stay and hang out a little longer. If the answer is no, okay, well, I'm going to make a different choice.
Keep moving, right?
Yeah.
Keep traveling. Yeah.
Because our life is not a destination. It's a journey.
No, it is such a journey. It's just like, and really settling into that and slowing down and going, you know what? Getting to be is not the do all end all. No. So I'm going to stop at all the little stops from A to B because I know when I get to B, I'm going to start looking at C.
Right.
So when I realize that life is the journey, for me, it gives me permission to slow down and enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
As opposed to living in the future. Because, you know, Eckhart Tolle, we only have the present moment. That's the only moment we can live in. Living in the past, living in the past isn't going to do it. Living in the future isn't going to do it. It's only in this moment that we're alive. So it's like, okay, if I start feeling stressed, I slow down. I give myself time. Stephen, what's your rush? Enjoy this moment. This is the one you're living. Make a lovely whatever selection you can from this moment. And then we'll see where it takes us.
You're beautiful, Stephen.
Dawn, girl.
I love talking to you. You have such, you have this beautiful, peaceful, healing energy that I feel every time I see you and connect with you. I love hanging out with you.
You certainly hear me, and that's such a gift. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So if people want to work with you, how can they get in touch with you?
You know, don't do a lot of that anymore. I teach my skills classes where
Uh-huh.
I help people learn the counseling skills to work with themselves, to do self-counselings. And so unless somebody's local, I tried the phone thing. It doesn't work for me. I want to be in somebody's energy,
Uh-huh.
to really be with them.
Uh-huh.
So
Well, tell
maybe
people where you live, just in
I
case
do.
there's some.
I live near Charlottesville, Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah. If anyone's in Central Virginia and wants to come take a skills class, or they're ongoing.
Can they find you
A
on
lot of,
Facebook?
yeah, I don't do a lot
You
on
don't do
Facebook
that.
though.
Okay.
No.
It's
Yeah.
okay. It's
But
okay.
anyway, maybe we'll do another one of these talks. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed myself.
That would be awesome.
So,
I love having these conversations, as you know.
yes, me too. Me too. It helps me too, because they just serve as reminders. I hear myself talk,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it reminds me of areas in my life that I could make different choices, or
Yeah.
where I might be able to love myself more. I
Yeah.
really make it all about me.
Well, it should be all about
So,
you.
I
which
encourage other people to do the same thing.
which is not a selfish thing. I mean, people, I think that's the big
Not at
myth
all.
that, when you're working on yourself and you're taking care of yourself and you're making choices that are aligned with yourself, it's not selfish,
No, well, we have through, I think, mainly religion, to thank for that selfish is a bad thing.
Uh-huh.
But my story with this is, listen, if you get in your car, you can't just get in your car and drive forever.
Yeah.
You have to stop and put gas in it.
Right.
You have to change the oil. There are maintenance things you have to do. And being selfish or about self is just doing that. It's a maintenance plan. It's saying, if my battery's low, how do I recharge my battery?
Yeah.
And doing what it takes to recharge your battery. I cannot be of service to somebody if I'm out of gas and haven't
Right.
changed the oil,
Right.
you know,
I
or
said
vacuumed up
if
some of the dirt in the car. I mean,
right.
and so selfish to me is no longer resonates as a bad thing. It's just, I am taking care of self. And
I
that's a
call it
beautiful thing,
self-care.
self-care. And then when I show up for others, I can authentically be there because I'm rested, I'm ready.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
I,
I've given myself energy, therefore I can also expend energy.
I've got something to share.
Yeah.
Right. I've got some of this love to let radiate out into the world from that place.
Right.
And when
And
I feel I need to go back inside, I do it. I'm like, Stephen, what would be helpful for you right now to recharge your battery?
yeah.
And it's just, talk about a loving gift for myself.
Yeah. And that's where it all starts and ends,
It
is
does.
finding all of those ways that you can be loving and kind and compassionate to yourself.
Yeah.
Finding that loving inner voice.
Yeah.
It's a
Because that ultimately will be what lifts
yeah.
and encourages and holds.
Yeah. So
So
beautiful. So beautiful, Stephen. Thank you so much for being here. You are awesome.
thank you, Dawn. And I hope we can do it again.
Me too. So I'm sure all of our listeners will love and appreciate this conversation because there's so much wisdom. I mean, I say this to you every time I talk to you, like you are a wealth of love and compassion and wisdom and beautiful energy. So if you liked this conversation, which I'm sure that you will, or you did, please subscribe to the Wake Up to Real Love podcast and share with your friends. Give any feedback if you want to hear, particular subjects or talk more about, what Stephen and I can talk about more next time. And also for listeners to get in touch with me. I specialize in overcoming heartbreak and betrayal based on both my professional and personal experience. So if anyone has any interest in working with me or getting some support and encouragement, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram as The Awakening with Dawn. And, as Stephen and I have expressed numerous times throughout this conversation, is that the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. It all starts and ends with you. So thank you so much, Stephen, for being here. I hope that we can have many more of these conversations.
Me too. Thank you, Dawn.
All right, listeners, take care every day. Wake up to more and more real love. See you next time.